Strayer & Olfers has the latest parts and products at the best prices, including tires for passenger vehicles and agricultural equipment from Michelin, BF Goodrich, Goodyear, and other trusted brands. They have a complete line of petroleum products, including non-ethanol fuel for automotive repairs, trailers, Kawasaki equipment, and so much more. Visit Strayer & Olfers, 509 South Adams Street in Fredericksburg, or call 830-997-4382.
Vogel Tractors, high-quality tractors, construction machines, and utility vehicles, new and used equipment and attachments from Rhino, Armstrong Ag, Industrious America, and more. Vogel Tractors specializes in 20 to 150 horsepower tractors, as well as skid steers, excavators, and more. All machines field-tested, shop-inspected, and serviced to exceed expectations. Online at VogelTractors.com or give us a call, 830-644-1400.
Segner's Jewelers in Bee Cave and Fredericksburg have all you desire for Valentine's Day. Beautiful diamonds, colorful gemstones, and metals to match your taste and complete your unique look. Your perfect engagement ring awaits you at Segner's. Let them custom design a special piece or repair your favorite one. Located in the HEB Center on 71 in Bee Cave and 236 West Main in Fredericksburg. Or at SegnersJewelers.com. Welcome to Segner's. Define your love. Define yourself.
At Hill Country Propane Inc., we work hard to earn your propane business. Do you need propane delivery for your home?
We're on it.
Refilling propane cylinders for your grill?
We're on it.
Filling up your RV in our easy drive-thru?
We're on it.
Savings on RV and cylinder fills?
We're on it.
For all your propane needs, choose Hill Country Propane Inc. because
we're on it.
Hill Country Propane Inc. Go propane.
certainly excited to be here in Gillespie County. We're at the market show, and we'll probably keep it about the same format. Bigger classes all day. We'll pull 4 or 5 of them back out, rework, and we get into those smaller classes. We might just pen from the bottom up, but excited to be here and a good way to start as we get into your reds. And I think a trio of them on the top end that certainly need to be there relatively easily. And honestly, I think don't miss the forest from the trees. Our taller young man on the far side needs to start this particular class today. And I mean, this one, when you just compare this particular gilt in comparison to her contemporary, she's taller shouldered, she's stouter in her mug, she's bigger in her arms, she's denser in terms of her structure, her hair texture. Still takes a secure step off of either end of her skeleton. Taller shouldered, stouter featured. I'm not going to try and convince you she's perfect in terms of her body cavity or just her natural rib cage shape. I'd like to open her there, but she's stout, wide, square. Looks like she's on the way up. I think a nice kind of class winner. I think the close decisions between our pair of younger young men here in 2 and 3, because obviously we've maybe got a little size difference here, and they come in a little different package in terms of just moderation, length of side, and body, because honestly I think both of them in terms of just natural body shape and rib cage probably have an advantage over that class winner. I didn't read either one of them as quite as elevated. I didn't read either one of them as quite as just burly and dense in terms of their structure. Ultimately, I landed on the young man to my right's barrow to go 2, young man on the far side's gilt to go 3, and I thought it was an incredibly close call. I thought that 1 and 2 blended a little better right there in his ham-loin junction, naturally a little more out of the backside of his blade as well. Our young man does an awesome job there in 3, driving a red one that's kind of cantankerous, and man, there's parts and pieces there. That thing in terms of length of hip, in terms of broadness of chest and depth of heart, she's incredibly impressive there. I thought maybe every once in a while, and part of it's we've got a younger showman who's in a gilt that wants to fight the whip when maybe got just a little out of whack, and from a coordination standpoint, blend her ham loin a little better, but I think that's an intriguing one to sit in 3. Go ahead and drop our young lady out there in 4, and I thought another rugged, stout one that certainly when that one first came in, I thought maybe has a chance. You can drop the one out in 4th. I thought when that one first came in, has a chance to work towards the top and ultimately catches a pin. It's 2 reasons, because I think stout and burly with a big arm, step off to the side of that barrel. He's got to be longer in his hip. He's got to blend his ham loin better, get right in behind him. He gets a little coarser jointed. Same can be said with that young lady there in 5. That one's skull and chest comes through. You want to send that one straight to a pin. In the same sense, do that same thing. Specifically study the way that one wants to use his just rear foot and pass her, and almost wants to knuckle up on his back left. You can rearrange how that one's built hawk to ground. His ham loin junction forward would allow him to move up. Good class to start with. Congratulate those kids as they head out.
Our results from Class 1, Durox. First place, Chapel Herber. Second place, Crossin Rains. Third place, Bennett Canese. Fourth place, Willow Herber. And fifth place, Hannah Cruzy. While our judge is going through this second class today, I'd like to introduce him. He's Garrett Spruill of Uricksville, Ohio. Garrett's a graduate of Ohio State University with a bachelor's degree in animal sciences. He currently owns and operates G&S Swine, a 100-sow show pig operation selling prospects year-round across the country with his wife Abby, daughter Sutton, brother Graydon, and grandfather Tom. This is his second year here, and he has judged shows of all levels across the United States for the past 13 years, as well as recently jumping on board with Fbg.Live as a sales advisor. Please, everyone, give him a good Texas welcome and thanking him for being here. First call, Class 3 Durocs. First call, Class 3 Durocs.
I think an interesting group of them here in your second class of Reds. I mean, just to be honest with ourselves, I think maybe not the quality or depth of quality is what that first class had. And quite honestly, if you sit ringside, you could about honestly place this class 100 different ways. And if you talk them right, you're going to be able to defend yourself, because these things come in every single shape and size. And again, not to be overly critical, we need to change all of these in a couple spots just to say, hey, that one needs to win the particular class, because you just peek in the ring at our top trio of them. You've got a good looking one that has to have more cage and chest. You got a stout burly one we've got to relax in terms of shoulder blade, have to open in terms of cage. You got one that looks like a modern day show pig on the side that we've maybe just got to tweak in terms of foot and ankle set. So kind of pick your poison, because you can pick on all of them in a spot. I think you kind of almost call it a wash and just say, hey, which one's harder to make or which one has more unique pieces. We're going to use the other taller young man's gilt there on the far side to go ahead and win this particular class. And truth be told, I was maybe overly critical when that gilt first came in, because I think honestly, you bring him back out, specifically him Hamlin Junction Ford. That thing looks like a modern-day show pig in terms of just ruggedness, stoutness. Easily has the best chest, the squarest knee, most secure front foot of what some of these top-end ones are. You know, I've got a cleaner maybe on the top side of her neck there, and I think every other step, you got to maybe watch where she wants to set her hoof wall, which she goes away from you. But I thought moderation, density, burliness, and still putting it together in a functional enough package allowed that one to go ahead and lead in this particular class. I think 2 and 3, again, kind of pick your poison. I ultimately landed on the young lady here with the orange bow to go ahead and go second. And to me, of our top 5, that's the tallest shouldered, maybe most attractive one on a side profile, just from a front third design standpoint. In that same sense, watch that barrel come at you. We've got to open him in terms of his chest and his knee. We've got to open him in terms of his cage. If he has more there, we could maybe talk about him being a class winner because I like the design and profile. I guess my problem child's the young ladies here in 3, because in terms of just arm and blade shape and size, in terms of natural spread, in terms of just reading, just muscle shape and expression over his loin edge, that barrel's so good in those areas. Still sits and takes a long enough step. In that same sense, he gets a little rounder from behind. And the big critique on that barrel, evaluate him on the side profile. We've got to relax him and shove his shoulder blade back into him to allow him to naturally elevate. Changing there, he can win the class in a hurry. I thought young lady in 4, very similar. If you wanted to maybe just talk build and design and silhouette, you could maybe ride that one up a spot because another one, neat looking on the side profile. We've got to drop that one's flank. We've got to flesh that one's belly. I read that one maybe just getting a little steeper out of her rump, but a good looking, incredibly well presented one to be there in 4. Young lady that comes out here in 5, another one maybe kind of like we've talked on several of them. I've got to change this one's just shoulder blade up front, relaxing. In that same sense, you know, that one's got a good sized arm working. Him. He's neat about his skull. We've just got to fix the way he's constructed. I thought he maybe got the roundest out of his hip and hind leg as any of them. Another well-presented one. Interesting class of them. Congratulate those kids as they head out.
Results from Class 2 Durocs. First place, Holt Herber. Second place, Scout Eckhart. Third place, Abigail Fitzsimmons. Fourth place, Casey Hawkins. And fifth place, Emma Schleder.
Strayer & Olfers has the latest parts and products at the best prices, including tires for passenger vehicles and agricultural equipment from Michelin, BF Goodrich, Goodyear, and other trusted brands. They have a complete line of petroleum products, including non-ethanol fuel for automotive repairs, trailers, Kawasaki equipment, and so much more. Visit Strayer & Olfers, 509 South Adams Street in Fredericksburg, or call 830-997-4382.
If the first and second place Durocs from Class 1 and Class 2 would make their way to the ring, so we will do the champion and reserve champion breed after this class, first and second place. So there's 4 pigs need to come to the ring, please. And Hamps, Class 1, you need to start thinking about it. Our champion Duroc went to Chapel Herbert, and our reserve champion Duroc went to Crasson Rains. First call, Class 2 Hamps. First call, Class 2 Hamps. Second call, Class 2 Hamps. Second call, Class 2 Hamps.
I think a good class of them, and honestly a logical class of them. A young man right here in front of me needs to go ahead and lead, and I think, again, I think they all kind of just place themselves accordingly pretty logically. That's a neat-looking shoal barrow that's the right length of body. He has decided advantages over the one that's going to go in second. I'm not sure if either one of them, of our top pair, are just perfect in terms of their hip length, but in terms of just natural shoulder blade set, in terms of rear and bone column, and in terms of just spread to that one's rear dew claw, he's going to excel. The one that sits in second, neat looking one on the side profile, neat looking about his head. Just lots of things you can talk about in terms of positives on that particular barrow. I think a very similar kind of barrow is our young man's in second. And in terms of length of body, that one's awesome. In terms of upper cage and center body feel, he probably has a slight advantage over our class winner. He's got the same kind of neat head, but in the same sense, he's not as stout and tough about his jaw and his cheek. He's not as dense in terms of his rear bone. I thought maybe that one was maybe even a nickel shorter hip than what that class winner winner was. Intriguing one here in 3 to see what this one could do maybe long-term if certain things go right, because when this one comes in the ring, that one's as tall-shouldered, as neat-looking, as fuzzy and big in his arm and his forearm as any of them. He's the right kind of silhouette on the side profile, is big in his upper hip and he spin. Why does he go third? Get directly right in behind him and watch what he wants to do with his rear legs as he goes away from you. He wants to almost throw his hawk outside his body wall, specifically on that back left. I don't know if he's battling an injury or what there, because if we can fix that barrel there, things in our top 3 could get different, because that's a good pig besides that one, glaring spot we have to talk about. Young man in 4 has got a stout, burly one. Maybe some size difference here on a few of these in our younger classes, but a stout-skulled, heavy-muscled, shapely one, big in her upper hip and her pin. Honestly, for as much as she has in terms of her hip and her stifle, still maintains a directional north and south step from her hind leg. I didn't read her as naturally elevated. She's not as naturally good in her flank as what some of the other ones are. A little different spin compared to that 1 and 4. Young man does a good job. Well presented, well clipped one here in 5. That's a neat looking, as we can kind of tell, naturally up-headed barrel. It's trained incredibly well. It gives you an awesome look. He's good in terms of his rib cage. When you just start to break that one down, he's nowhere near as dense or big in his foot, his ankle, his arm, his hind leg is some. I ride him maybe a nickel straighter in terms of his shoulder blade, but again, very good parts and pieces there. Good class of them to start your hamps with. Show those kids your support as we get into your second class.
Results from our Class 1 hamps. First place went to Cole Rains. Second place, Audie Usner. Third place, Holt Herber. Fourth place, Henley Willis. And fifth place, Brazos Herber. I apologize. Brazos was fourth and Henley was fifth. First call, Class 3 hamps. First call, Class 3 hamps.
I think a good class of them, and I think maybe the closest decision on a top pair that we've had to make today because these things are just incredibly different in terms of their type and their kind, and just kind of where one of them's good, quite honestly, is where we need to change the other one and vice versa, and it gets close. You know, you can sit ringside and have some discussions amongst, I guess, amongst yourselves on what you want to do. Quite honestly, I guess for me, at the end of the day, you project these things a little bit. Which one would I rather have on feed? I guess long term is going to be the young man's here to my right. And, you know, critics in the room are going to say, hey, that one's not as burly up high in terms of squareness of back. He's not as burly in terms of his cage. And I completely agree with you. Never going to argue with you there. And that's what makes that decision incredibly close. I think you step back and evaluate them, though. Which one's naturally more elevated? Which one's naturally longer from blade to ear? Which one takes a longer step and actually sits on a bigger hind leg? That barrow does all of those things. If you want to say, hey, I'm beating him today because he doesn't have enough to him, you know, we can certainly discuss that. My opinion today, that's the one I'm most comfortable with. Young lady does an excellent job presenting this particular barrow. And in terms of squareness of back and shape and spread up high, he's big in his upper hip and his pen. He's big in his cage. You have to love all of those things about him. He's another stout-skulled, clean-jawed type of barrow. In that same sense, I didn't read him as maybe just as naturally relaxed in terms of his shoulder blade. He's not as big in terms of his foot, his toe, his rear bone column is what that one that wins the class is. He is maxed out and shapely up high. I thought that was a nice top pair of them there to kind of evaluate. Interesting top pair of them. Young lady in 3, another one. If you just want to look down on one in a holding pen, this one might be the most impressive one because that thing has got a big rolled up square back working in him naturally. It's just massive and square up high. Good in his cage. Another one, big in his upper hip and his pen. I read him as easily maybe the most jammed up through his front third in that top trio. He's the one that's maybe gets the shortest coupled off of either end. But man, that thing was show ready and dialed in and has some impressive parts and pieces to talk about. Young man's got another interesting one here, and quite honestly, stays that same type and kind as what those ones in 2 and 3 were. Moderate, big back, dense, burly. I thought he did all those things very similarly in that same sense. He's naturally lower fronted. He's naturally smaller and frailer in terms of his feature. I don't want to call him frail, but in relation to the contemporaries and the ones he's showing against, he certainly is. The 1 and 5, I thought in terms of just look and build and skeletal quality got to stay. I think we can all look in the ring and say, hey, that one's not show ready. Looks like we can hit the gas on this barrow. His side profile and design's awesome. If he'll respond and just open and bulk and chub, I think there's parts and pieces there because he's so good in his build. He's neat looking on the side. I'd still like to stouten his mug, maybe stouten his foot and pick him up on his front pastern ever so slightly. But good class of 5 of them, interesting class of them. Congratulate those kids as they head out.
Our results from Class 2 Hamps: first place, Crossin' Rains; second place, Emma Schleder; third place, Willow Herber; fourth place, Brody Byer; and fifth place, Abigail Fitzsimmons. If I could get the first and second place hamps from class 1 and 2 to come to the show ring, and then we're on to York. So class 1 York, start thinking about coming.
Hey, another nice class of them here in your hams. Not really negotiable. A young lady in the black needs to win. And in this contemporary setting, Barrow pokes his head through the gate and he wins this particular class because he's stout mug. He looks like a show bear, and I don't mean that, I guess, in a negative light, but looks the most like a modern-day show pig in this particular class. Maxed out up high, shapely, fresh, and square. His view on the side profile, his view up high is very, very impressive. And, you get in behind him. I don't know if he's just absolutely perfect as he goes away. But quite honestly, it doesn't really affect the placing in this class. I think that's a nice one to start. I think 2 and 3 gets a little bit closer here because, honestly, in relation, we've got to make these ones stouter in relation to that class winner. I guess push comes to shove. Young lady needs to be second. Evaluate those barrows on the side. That one's naturally taller at the point of his shoulder. He's naturally more elevated. I'd actually argue he probably leaves you with more through his inner stifle and lower ham as well. Like I said, we've got to stouten him up, and even though he's not a stout creature, you almost need to watch what he wants to do with his rear foot placement from time to time. Young man's barrel, I thought, logically kind of went into third. It's got a shot more muscle and spread than a few of these other ones. Got a neater head and look when he sticks his mug through the gate. I need to drop him in his flank. And again, I hate to sound like a broken record, but we've got to make him stouter in terms of feature. Young lady in 4 easily has the second stoutest featured animal in this particular class. We maybe never get to get just a perfect look at this one. Stout featured, hairy. That one in terms of spread up high is very good as well. And, you get in behind her, and even when you do get to look at her, I've got a square from her hock to ground, especially on her back left. Square front foot. I'd like to pick her up in her pastern, but in terms of just muscle, bone, and hair, she grabs a pen and gets to stay. I think you can have some discussion with this one here in 5 because young man does a good job showing this particular barrel. When he gets him drove, I think gets his head up, it gives you kind of a good look on the side, level in terms of his back. In that same sense, read him out of his hip and his hind leg. I read him as just the straightest in his hip, the shortest in his hip, because if you can lengthen him, make him take a better step, his elevation type and kind looks like he can make a good heavyweight. Good class of them. Congratulate those kids as they head out.
First call, class 1 Yorks. First call, class 1 Yorks. Results from our class 3 hamps. First place went to Reese Saugabill. Second place, JC Tribes. Third place, Brody Byer. Fourth place, Emma Wyndham. And fifth place, Brigham Wyrick. Now for our selection of our champion and reserve champion hamp.
just a trio of them here in your Hamp division. But I think 3 class winners that come back out here, and I'm not going to sit here and re-talk them all, but I think 3 class winners that come out here, and you can probably get an idea, just I guess for the kind that I like, they probably match up a little better in relation than maybe the Reds did. But I think, honestly, I think there's a pair of them that are just more unique and harder to make in areas and spots. I thought one of them, I guess, hit me hard in terms of just elevation, look, design. This thing's hip and hind leg, I think, is bulletproof. Really, really neat one. I like that young man's lightweight to be your champion. Congratulations.
First call, Class 2 Yorks. First call, Class 2 Yorks. Second and final call for Class 2 Yorks.
Yes, get into your Yorks or your white ones, and a breed that's hard to make them good in, and it's just it's a challenge to make good ones. And I think you can probably watch the class and see that because I'm not. I don't think any of them are perfect. I mean, none of them are, but I think just hip and hind leg you can have some discussions about, because honestly, I think we need to tweak all of them in a spot or two: hip, hind leg, hock, rear foot, or passenger set if you want to talk that. And honestly, at the end of the day, in my head, I said, hey, you just have to call it a wash, and the breeder in me is not going to beat the one right here in front of me. And again, I'm not here to tell you she's perfect, but man, where she is good, she's incredibly good. That thing is naturally moderate but tall-shouldered, dense in her skull. She's actually got length to her neck, but she's not a sissy. Big in her arm. Her spread, her shape, her hair is awesome. Now, in the same sense, what takes me maybe a little longer to make that decision is because from time to time, I mean, we've got a younger showman on her too. I think from time to time, she almost wants to roll and pop her rear pastern. Maybe just doesn't want to be as long in terms of her hip is ideal, but then she can get rolling and go. Again, I'm not here to convince anybody she's perfect there, but none of them in this class are. That one needs to go ahead and start. I think what makes some discussion is because I like a lot of things about this barrow that's going to go in second as well. He's naturally more elevated, taller to the point of his shoulder than what that class winner is. Does he have just the bone circumference, the foot size, the arm, the blade? No. But that's a neat looking barrow that paints an awesome picture on the side profile. I would say in terms of length of hip, he's probably naturally longer in terms of his hip than what that class winner is. In that same sense, get in behind him. That barrow almost wants to throw his hocks outside of his body almost more than that class winner does. And that's what ultimately call that a wash. Your decision becomes easy. And I'm not going to try and sound like a broken record because I think that's honestly where we need to fix realistically all of them in this particular class is off their hip and their hind leg. I mean, we get past that. I thought the young ladies in third was stouter in the mug, naturally longer neck, taller shoulder than that one that goes in four. Good shape up high. We got a dropper, cage, opener in terms of her flank. Another nice one with parts and pieces there. Same can be said for our young ladies there in four. I thought that was a very close pair of them in 3 and 4. I didn't read that one maybe as quite as comfortable on its front foot. Another one, shapely, rolled up kind of back. Maybe wants to be a little thicker on the top side of his neck, a little rounder out of his rump. Young ladies here in 5. Honestly, if you just want to look in the ring and say, hey, which one's absolutely the most comfortable in their skeleton, it's probably the barrow that lands in 5. And I don't normally say that because his length of stride off either end's awesome. In the same sense, he's easily the plainest about just his head and his neck and his front third. He's easily the flattest in his cage, frailest in his foot size, but that's a good build athletic one that has muscle and spread. Make him stouter, make him open up more. We can move him up a spot or two. Interesting group of them. Congratulate those kids. They head out.
Results from our first class of Yorks. First place went to Murphy Blunt. Second place, Mackenzie Wyrick. Third place, Carson Beachy. Fourth place, Carson Beachy. And fifth place, Emma Schleder. First call, Class 1, white OPBs.
Well, just 6 of them here in this second class, Yorks, and I guess no disrespect to the first class. I guess we kind of found where the heat of them were, I guess, at least in my opinion. And I thought, man, maybe those ones we stick in 3 and 4 are very good in their own right, but I think these two just kind of stick out in terms of just show pigs with extras and uniqueness, in terms of just elevation, look. Their skulls are awesome, their jaw lines, their throat latches are clean, and still, I'm not going to try and convince anybody either one of them are perfect, but I think you evaluate them. One of them's naturally bolder and deeper about their chest and their heart. That same one's bigger out of the back side of their blade, bigger in their upper cage, and actually leaves you with a shot more at the arena surface. I like that little young man on the far side's gilt to go ahead and win this particular class. Take nothing away from this young lady's barrow in second because they're obviously not going to show against each other when it really matters, or when they may even go to different shows, whatever. I'm not here to, I guess, project that, but I think that's a very, very good one in this particular, I guess, breed or color. Tall-shouldered, neat-looking, show barrow deluxe from a side profile to standpoint. Love that one's skull and jawline. His length of reach off of his hind legs good. I read him just greener and more immature in terms of his body, his chest, and maybe as he left you, I'm assuming that the end goal's not to maybe win a county fair today, but I think there's a lot of good stuff there. That's a very good pair of them on the top end. Again, blowing no smoke. I think this 1 and 3 is very good in her own right. That's another up-headed, neat one. Stout skull, good in her mug, good in her arm, level in terms of her back. I thought in relation to the pair of them, she gets beat by. She's not as naturally clean on the top side of her neck. She didn't have quite as much in terms of her cage or her lower flank. Maybe just not as just burly and hairy. But man, there's a lot of places you can show that one, and she wins the Yorks and wins the Yorks for fun. Quite honestly, you could probably say that about the 1 and 4 too. That is a wild looking one in terms of just skull and jawline. Neat looking. I thought that one, we didn't really drive them very long. In relation, was flatter bodied. Almost wanted to swivel east and west off of her hind leg a little more than what I guess I would deem ideal. Fix her front foot. Again, it sounds like I'm being critical on a very nice Yorkshire type of gilt, because she's short-bodied, neat-looking, hairy, rugged, does a lot of things really, really well. Drop out our young men there in 5 and 6, and I thought a pair of them, quite honestly, maybe could have worked up a spot or two in a different class or weight range. I thought maybe just a little plainer in their makeup, not as much muscle as that top end. Give all those kids a big round of applause. Good class of them.
Second call, Class 1, white OPBs, Miss Scout Eckhart. Results from Class 2 Yorks. First place went to Bennett Canese. Second place, Reese Sagabill. Third place, Murphy Blunt. Fourth place, Chapel Herbert. And fifth place, Leighton Ray. What was it? Abby, what was it? Raycheck? Raycheck. Sorry, Leighton.
I told him go ahead and just drop them all out. I probably didn't show my poker face real good there, but I think you drop these 4 out. If you can't look in the ring and just see the quality and parts and pieces of all 4 of these things, we're maybe not looking at the same things, because, again, I'm not here to tell anybody they're perfect, but, man, these things are very, very good and unique in their own right, and you can have just some discussions in the back, or where they're going to go, or who's going to be the better one in the end, or, which one will be a better sow, etc. But my compliments to all 4 of these kids and their families. I think a good set of 4 of them. We're not going to, I guess, mess around here. We're going to keep those 2 heavyweights together to be your grand and reserve, your young man to my right, and young lady here in front of me. Congratulations to them.
Our champion York went to Bennett Canese, and reserve champion to Reese Sagabill. First call, Class 2 white OPBs. First call, Class 2 white OPBs. And Class 1 dark OPBs, think about it, because these are some small classes, so be ready, please.
Smaller class of them here as you get into your whites, and I think 4 of them, again, different parts and pieces. Kind of pick your poison, if you will. I need to tweak them maybe on a spot or two. I like that young lady with the orange bow there to go ahead and lead this particular class. And for me, in this particular setting, tall-shouldered barrow that's good in terms of his look. He's shapely and square up high. He's actually got more on the upper side of his skeleton when you get on top of that barrow than it maybe initially seems from a side profile. He's got good his rear bone column. He's got an awesome hip and hind leg that's not going to quit. He needs to open and just flesh in terms of his cage. I'd like to maybe just naturally relax his shoulder, pick him up there a little bit, but I thought that's a barrow needed to go ahead and lead. Our taller young man's going to go ahead and go second, and complete opposite side of the spectrum. There obviously maybe some size difference there, but that barrow in terms of center body cavity, in terms of rib shape, in terms of skeletal build, he's very good. He's square, he's comfortable, he's flexible, he's got good spread. He's more non-descriptive in terms of his muscle pattern. He's not as elite, and he's looked through his front third. If you could trim that one up through his head and his cheek and his neck, give him a shot more muscle up high, I think we'd allow that one to go ahead and start. Our other young man's barrow is going to be 3. Our young lady on the far side's gilt's going to go 4. Now, quite honestly, maybe the 2 naturally heaviest muscled ones in this particular class. Young man's in 3rd, big rolled up type of back. I've got to change the way that barrow ties his neck into his shoulder blade, relax his shoulder, get in behind him, and we've got to change him in terms of his hip and hind leg, but still heavy muscle. Same can be said for the young lady in 4. Big rolled up back kind of gilt. She, I thought, was the most naturally low shouldered in this particular setting. Got to square her at the arena surface as she leaves us, but tons of muscle packed into a moderate skeleton. Interesting class of them. Congratulate those kids as they head out.
Placings from Class 1 white OPBs. First place went to Scout Eckhart. Second place, Brody Byer. Third place, Brazos Herber. And fourth place, Zuri Lauderdale. This will also be first call for Class 1 dark OPBs.
Another just quartet of them here. A young lady to my right, Sparrow, needs to go ahead and lead. I think does so relatively logically. Tall-shouldered, attractive type of show barrel. He's still level in terms of his lines. His build and skeletal quality is awesome off either end of his skeleton, secure in his foot, and still toe quality is awesome. He reads like he's got muscle and shape, but he reads like he could get more. And he doesn't again look like he's maxed out for this particular show, because if you want to sit here and say, hey, on this day he probably needs to have a shot more in terms of his cage, he needs to have a little more out of the back of his blade, but his look, his build, his feature allow him to go ahead and win this class relatively easily, in all honesty. I thought 2, 3, and 4 you can have some discussion because there's parts and pieces of them. I like the young man in kind of the lighter blue on the far side, Sparrow, to go ahead and go second. I thought that one most similarly followed our class winner in terms of just type and kind of elevation of roll and shape out over his loin edge. Still bear the reads like he's got some muscle in his upper hip and his pin, and I thought in relation to the class winner, that one's still maybe not as aggressive in the turn to his loin edge, not as clean through his cheek and his throat and his jawline there, but a good built one. I thought 3 and 4 again, kind of take them how you want them there. You've got one that's got more shape and muscle. You've got one that's really good in terms of just center body and dimension. You kind of have to make a judgment call, I guess, if you will. We're going to use the young man here close to me for 3, young man on the far side for 4. I thought that guild in terms of just elevation, in terms of natural shape and freshness allowed her. We obviously need to drop her and flesh her. Young man's Sparrow in 4. If that's your kind, that's your kind. Moderate, dense, and burly in terms of his center body. I didn't read him as just as attractive enough through his front third. Get on him. He's more plain and non-descriptive in terms of his muscle pattern, but a good class of 4 of them. Congratulate those kids. They're doing a good job. Good job.
Results from Class 2 Wide OPB. First place, Mackenzie Wyrick. Second place, Connor Sides. Third place, Creed Cromer. And fourth place, Caden Byer. Now we'll begin our selection of champion and reserve champion Wide OPB. I'd like a second and final call for Class 1 Dark OPB. Second final call, please.
We'll get you a champion in here in your wide OPBs, and I would just drop all 4 of them out. We just got done talking them, and not a ton of numbers. So I still think you find quality on the top end in this particular division. Honestly, we're going to have a grand reserve here that maybe fit the same just type and kind and almost go together, maybe as well as any breed we've had so far today. I think there's a pair of them. The 2 of them in contention are your pair of class winners in terms of just elevation, look, both very good in terms of their skeletal quality. I read one of them today, naturally a shot bigger in their arm. You get on top of him. That Sparrow has a naturally just a little more out of the back of his blade, a little more in terms of his cage. I think both of them have a chance to be very good heavyweight kind of barrows in this particular division. Young lady's heavyweight will be your champion. Young lady in orange is lightweight will be your reserve.
Our champion Wide OPB goes to Mackenzie Wyrick, and our reserve champion goes to Scout Eckhart. We are still needing Bennett Canese to the show ring for Class 1. First call, Class 2 dark OPBs. First call, Class 2 dark OPBs. We only have 2 classes, so we'll be going on to the Berks after this.
Get in to your dark OPBs here, and I think maybe a trio of them. The surface relatively quickly, and still I think some differences and talking points amongst the 3 of them. The one I'm most comfortable with is going to be our young man right here to my left, Poland appearing gilt, and I think just break these 3 apart and evaluate them for what they are. I read that one as naturally the most elevated, probably comes at you with the most in terms of her chest floor. Still neat looking one on the side profile and has a decided advantage there in terms of actual true length of neck, and still for a younger, or I guess I should say pounds lighter, immature gilt, still reads like she's on her way up. Good in terms of her muscle shape, fresh in terms of her appearance, good in terms of her hind leg. Thought she'd left you with more at the arena surface than either of the other 2 in contention. I think a nice one to go ahead and lead. I thought 2 and 3 was where the decision is because you've got one that's maybe just a little stouter and a little more rugged, that's a little more jammed up front. You've got one that's probably a little more elevated, that gets a little frailer in terms of their feature. And I think it's honestly a very close trade-off for which way you want to go. For me today, I like the young lady's spot appearing barrow to go 2. Young man's Poland appearing gilt's going to go 3. I thought the young lady's barrel just had a shot more everywhere in terms of just cage and spread and density. Again, if you want to make the talking point with that young man's gilt on the far side, because she is taller shouldered, she's naturally more elevated. I can get that because I thought that's the closest pair of them. I didn't think that one was just as big in her rear foot or her rear toe. Maybe just not as much there today. Read a little more immature, but I thought a nice trio of them on the top end that could go some different ways, and you can discuss some different things. I think the young man's barrow that comes out here in 4, again, I think if the right things happen from a feed bucket standpoint, could be interesting because he's got a neat look. His head and his jaw and his throat latch are so clean. He naturally has a ton of shape and spread on the upper side of his skeleton, hip, and he's pinned in the ring today. He's just too hard. He's too bunched up, and he's top line. If that thing can flesh and soften and relax long term, I think there's some neat pieces there. We can drop out 5 and 6. Young man's got a real stout, wide, heavy, muscled one. Have to make her bigger and her type and her kind for this show judge. I thought young man's spot there. Another one, tall shoulder, neat looking, shapely up high. Looks like we're battling an injury along the way, not allowing him to just get out and go like you need him to. Good class of them. Congratulate those kids as they head out.
Placings from Class 1 dark OPBs. First place went to Bennett Canasi. Second place, JC Tribes. Third place, Crossin Rains. Fourth place, Gus Barron. Fifth place, Quade Durst. And sixth place, Mark Wade Schmidtinsky. First call, Class 1 Berks. First call, Class 1 Berks.
Yeah, your second class. Young man right here in front of me needs to win relatively logically. It just looks like a show gilt is ready to win today. In terms of just being burly and dense, in terms of her arm and her shoulder blade shape, it's still got a neat kind of look. She's just more maxed out, more 12 o'clock, really. In terms of just her upper side squareness and shape and freshness and anything in this particular drive, still sits on an incredibly comfortable skeleton. You don't want to be nitpicky. You can say, hey, we could probably lengthen that gilt's hip a little bit, clean her right there through her jawline and her throat latch, but that's being nitpicky on a very nice, high-quality kind of class winner. I thought young ladies, as easy as that one wins, I thought this one easily slides into two. Just more proportional and compositionally correct, neat-looking kind of show barrow in terms of elevation, height of shoulder. Reads like he's got the ability to mass and bulk when you want him to. Neat looking. Didn't read him. It's just is burly in terms of his center body, is dense in his feature, and just big coming at you is what that class winner was. But a neat kind of show barrel with the right kind of look and pattern. I thought young man's here in third barrel. I thought just simply outhorsed and massed everything else in terms of the ones that are going to go in 4, 5, and 6. Obviously has a pounds advantage, but in terms of just raw natural spread, shape, and squareness of back, that barrel does a lot of things really well. I don't read him as good on the upper side of his neck. We got to change the way his neck ties into his shoulder blade, maybe change him honk to ground ever so slightly. But that's a good, heavy muscled kind of animal. A nice kind of Hereford Gilt, honestly. I think you guys have a Hereford Gilt show place or two down here now, and I think this one, in terms of just look and build and skeletal quality, can fit the mold in that breed. I guess if she has papers, because that she's very good in those areas. Naturally reads like she can bulk and stout.
Results from Class 2 Dark OPBs. First place went to Audie Usner. Second place, Emma Schleder. Third place, Brody Beyer. Fourth place, Hannah Cruzy. Fifth place, Hagen Paisley. And sixth place, Amelia Haley. Now for the selection of our champion and reserve champion Dark OPBs. And second and final call for Class 1 Berks. Second final call, Class 1 Berks.
Well, again, not huge on numbers here in your dark OPBs, but I thought quality, and you bring 4 of them back out again. We've referenced some other breeds. I still think high-end quality is very, very good. I think one of them is just here and ready to win today in terms of just freshness, spread, mass, bulk, and dimension. I kind of reference there's a spot or two we can tweak her, but we're not gonna miss, I guess, the forest from the trees because she's a workhorse out here in relation. I like the young man Spot Gilt right here in front of me to be your champion. Congratulations to him. I guess I went ahead and we'll stay on the mic. I think the decision for reserve for me is where it becomes really close between that second place and that other class winner, because I think in terms of elevation and look and design on the side profile, they're very similar. Honestly, for me, when I break them down, I think pound for pound, one of them is naturally bigger in their foot and their toe. That same one's more true and genuine in terms of their mid cage, their upper rib cage, their forerib. In the same sense, I actually think they project to probably stay cleaner on the upper side of their neck. I like the young man's little pull appearing Gilt to be a reserve. Congratulations to him.
Our champion Dark OPB goes to Audie Usner, and our reserve champion Dark OPB goes to Bennett Kanazy. First call, Class 2 Berks. First call, Class 2 Berks.
I think a good class of them here in the Berks. Honestly, maybe as close of a top 5 as we've had in any class or breed. I think there was 5 or 6 in here. Very nice. I was never not going to start with the young man's barrel right here in front of me. I thought that one kind of comes in. Just looks like a show barrel in terms of length of body. He's got a neat head working in him. Just his maturity pattern fits. He's got shape, spread, stout skulled, barrel length of body. He's stouter and denser in terms of his skeletal features than most of them, and I would contend maintains the best skeletal integrity off of either end of his skeleton. You know, he maybe teeter-totters that line of how fast or slow you got to go or how big he gets in the end. For me, I think he's right on track. I like that barrel. Very good deal to go ahead and start. I thought 2 and 3 gets really close because quite honestly, you have one that obviously has outline pieces in this particular breed or setting that maybe there's just one spot, if you can call them acceptable enough there, you can kind of roll with. You got another one that's a little safer, plainer, and I don't want to say plainer, but a little safer, not as descriptive in terms of their muscle pattern. Ultimately, I call her good enough in one spot. I like the young man's gilt here to my right to go too. And if you want to just talk out there elite pieces, her skull, her look for front third, her squareness of back and spreads maybe as good as any of them in the class. Is this view right here about every second or third step? If I could square her from honk to ground on her back left foot, if she sets that thing down square, I can run with that one, and that's ultimately what makes that close decision for me. Young man we penned up there was in 3. You can leave him there. You can leave him there if you want, or you can let him out. But just another one. I thought it was close because that one's a safer bet in terms of where he puts where she puts her back left foot in that same sense. I didn't read her. It's just descriptive in her muscle pattern, not as elite in terms of her look, but in the same sense, a good-looking one that has body and substance. Just maybe not some of those ESTs is that gilt that goes in too. Still, we keep rolling here. This young man's gilt that comes out in 4. There's a lot of parts and pieces of that one I like, too. That's a stout mugged one that's got true shape up high. I thought in relation to maybe some of the other ones in this class, I didn't read her is strong and secure in her front foot. I thought that one maybe wanted to swivel a little more east and west in terms of her hind leg and just ham-loin junction hookup. But skull, shape, hair, very good. Young man does an awesome job driving her. Young lady there in 5 doesn't have a slouch of a barrel by any means, and I guess different day, different judge. I could see this one working his way up because where he's good, he's very good. He's big in his arm, he's awesome and big in his upper hip, and he's pinned, stout about his mug. In the same sense, I didn't read him as naturally elevated. I read him rounder in terms of his muscle pattern, a little flatter in terms of his body. But man, I still think that's a very good one to sit there and 5. Our young lady in 6, our young man there in 7, maybe ran into just a buzzsaw of a class, if you will. Young lady's got a very, very good built one. She does a good job driving. Just has to be stouter in terms of feature, has to have more muscle in comparison to his contemporaries. Young man's in 7 actually has a shot more bone and feature and spread in that same sense. He really wants to taper at the arena surface when you get in behind him. Good class of them, interesting class of them. Congratulate those kids as they head out.
Placings from Class 1 Berks. First place goes to Chapel Herber. Second place, Bennett Canese. Third place, Chapel Herber. Fourth place, Holt Herber. And fifth place, another Herber, Willow Herber. First call, Class 1 crosses.
Yeah, your next class of Berks, a very non-negotiable. Doesn't take real long. A young lady right here in front of me with the purple bow wins. Wins for fun. Neat-looking animal that's stout in her mug, square in her back, shapely, awesome build. That's a very good one. Wins with a 10-point cut. I think it gets close after that, quite honestly. Between a few of them, I actually ultimately land on the young lady's bear right here in front of me to go second. And I think when you can finally he settles down and she gets him going, that's a neat looking bear that's naturally elevated. He blends his neck into his shoulder well. He's level in his lines. His build and skeleton's awesome. To me, it looks like, hopefully if you hit the go button, if you will, if that thing will bulk and mass, I think there's parts and pieces of that show barrel that can be very good. Maybe a little more time in the yard, a little more feed and roll, but his build, his skeleton's bulletproof, I think just has a higher ceiling, in all honesty, than a few of the other ones. Our taller young man's going to go 3, and originally I maybe had that pair of them flop because that one today has more to him in terms of just spread and dimension. I think you just bring him back out, evaluate him. To me, that barrel closes up more in terms of his chest. He gets a little more rigid in terms of his shoulder and his hip in terms of length of step, but still heavy muscle barrel that's shapely. Young lady does a good job driving this gilt here in 4. She's stout in her mug, good in terms of her center body. Honestly, from a skeletal aspect, she can get out and go and motor and function in relation to the trio ahead. We've got to reconstruct that gilt's front third in terms of elevation and look. I'd like to see her come with a square, more rolled up back in terms of just natural muscle. Let out our young man there on the far side in 5. That one in relation probably does carry just a shot more, just roll and expression out of her loin edge in the same sense. Gets a little long-bodied for me. Need to drop that gilt in terms of her flank, open her in terms of her cage, but love her muscle, big in her upper hip and her pin. Nice class of them, good class winner, and congratulate those kids as they head out.
Results from Class 2 Berks. First place went to Murphy Blunt. Second place, Layla Raycheck. Third place, Aiden Stout. Fourth place, Charlize Davis. And fifth place, Quade Durst. Now for the selection of our champion Berk.
Again, bring these ones back out here. I thought maybe not huge in terms of numbers, but like I've referenced in maybe several of these breeds, I think the upper end quality in most all of these breeds has been very, very good, whether there was 7 or 8 of them in the breed or 30 of them. And I think this breed here in your Berks just fits that bill as well. At the same time, decision's incredibly easy in my mind. Young lady right here in front of me has to win this breed. Congratulations to her. I thought from there you can have a little more discussion, but honestly, they fall in line relatively easily. Moderate, stout, runs uphill, neat-looking one. Young man that wins Class 1 will be your reserve. Congratulations to him.
Second and final call, Class 1 crosses. Okay. Our champion Berk went to Murphy Blunt, and our reserve champion Berk went to Chapel Herberg. First call, Class 2 crosses. First call, Class 2 crosses.
I think a good class of them. We kept 6 of them, so the most we've kept all day. Good class of them, same sense. One of them wins for fun. Young lady in the light green teal shirt there in the center of the rings got a very good animal. He sticks his head through the gate. He's stout and he's mug. He's intimidating in terms of just his jawline and stoutness, but yet he's clean up front. He's big in his arm and his blade. That is a ginormous hind leg that's still clean in his joint work. He's maybe as long hipped as any of them we've seen today. today. I think very, very proportional in terms of his length of body, runs uphill. Good class winner to start. Young lady's belted gilt's going to go 2, and I think that's a gilt. Honestly, you just have to appreciate a lot of things about her. She's obviously well presented and well drove in the same sense. That's a gilt that's still stout in her mug, incredibly square in terms of the shape of her back up high. Her roll to her loin edge is awesome. She has a few advantages in terms of just squareness of chest, comfortability, and again, we've kind of talked structure all day. I think that's another one. Her length of step, security of foot off either end of her skeleton's very, very good. She's not as out there in terms of bone. She's not as just as massive in terms of upper cage as that class winner. I think that's a very good crossbred gilt to sit into 2. I think you get that pair of them out of here is where you can have more discussion realistically from 3 through 6. And if you guys ringside want to critique some maybe harder than I do or flop a few here or there, I get it because it gets closer here. I ultimately landed on the young ladies there in 3rd in terms of density of feature, foot and toe size, spread, a rear dew claw, in terms of wild look, hair texture, and coat. That one's as good as any of them we've seen as well. I didn't read that one specifically as he goes away from you. He's almost more immature, and he's in her stifle and in her ham. He's got to leave you with more. He needs to come at you with more in his cage and his chest if you're going to run with that top pair. But a neat-looking, big-legged one that's good in his own build as well. Kind of, I guess, a horse of a different color in 4 because this one, in terms of upper hip and pin width and just spread as he goes away and mass as he leaves just maybe as wide and true as any of them in that regard. In the same sense, I thought this one got a little softer in terms of his front foot set. I thought he was a little plainer on the upper side of his neck, a little flatter in terms of his cage, and I don't mean to sound overly critical because that's a dense, burly one in his own right that's got true shape, has true spread, maybe not as just filled up or ready today as a few of those other ones. I like this blue barrel when he comes out. If we can change the view of this barrel when he comes right at you, if you can open him and his chest and his front knee and just make his forearm a little bigger, I think it's go time then because he's perfect in his length of body, neat looking, stout in his mug, good in his hip and his hind leg, very capably driven. I've got to change him in his chest when he comes right at me. If you do that, he works himself up in a hurry. I think the 1 and 6 again too. 1 in terms of a look and just capably driven standpoint's awesome. Neat looking one, incredibly comfortable in terms of his skeletal build, good in terms of his center body. Quite honestly, I just didn't read him anywhere near stout, whether you want to talk skull, jaw, foot, arm, or blade, specifically in his front leg, and what the rest of those were in that class. That's still a very, very good pig to sit in 6. Good class of them. Congratulate all those kids as they head out.
Results from Class 1 crosses. First place, Taylin Toch. Second place, Casey Hawkins. Third place, Channing Spinrath. Fourth place, Holt Herbert. And fifth place, Caroline Haley. For anyone interested in flooring their pigs today, they're 45 cents a pound. If you're interested in flooring, you can come up here and talk to us. First call, Class 3 crosses. First call, Class 3 crosses.
Hey, another nice class of them, and again, I think a non-negotiable class winner, young lady in the black, is bear right here in front of me. Again, kind of wins within about the first 10 seconds in this particular class. Comes through tall-shouldered, big in his arm and his forearm, neat about his head. He's got hair dripping off of him, a big hind leg that goes directionally north and south the way it should. Still reads maybe not as just as far along in terms of muscle as some, and that's totally fine. I think he's almost immature in the right kind of way in terms of his muscle pattern. Everything fits, blends, balances. That one needed to go ahead and start. I think it gets closer, and you can talk 2, 3, and 4 honestly how you want. So we're going to use the young man right here in front of me to go ahead and go to. I thought of the pair of them that I thought were better and more genuine in terms of their hip length and just their security of step and foot. This one to me has a shot more in terms of his cage, had a shot stouter type of mug in relation to maybe the ones we're going to talk there down the line. I'd like to clean him up through his neck and just his throat ever so slightly, not as just burly and manly as that class winner is. A young man in third, quite honestly, I didn't pen this one maybe as fast right out the gate, and then I think you just start to break this animal down. He's tall-shouldered, he's neat neat looking. He reads like he's naturally going to be big and square out of the back of his blade when you want him to. His roll and freshness up high is very good. I thought his skeletal quality allowed him to slide up a couple spots. Maybe ultimately the limiting factor there is that one's just going to get stout enough in terms of foot, arm, and bone long term to get around maybe one or two of those other ones. This is the one that excuse me. This is the one that is stouter in terms of hip and just rear bone column and feature. Sits on a little bigger forearm, and I think that's why you can make some case and some discussion. Neat kind of head on him when you get on top of him. He's good in terms of spread. I thought that one ever so slightly just almost wants to pop in his top line. He wants to be a little more rigid out of his hip and his hind leg in relation to that top trio of them. If you want to say, hey, man, that one's got more to him than maybe one or two ahead of him and run him that way, I think you can make that case. For me, I just got to change him as he goes away. I thought it got close between a few of them to catch pen number 5. Ultimately, I guess just projecting a future lands the young ladies here. Neat looking type of gilt that's got a stout mug, a shapely back. She had a more square, secure hind leg than a few of them. Need to flesh this gilt, drop her flank, open her cage. Good class of them. Another good class winner on the top. Congratulate those kids as they head out.
Results from Class 2 crosses. First place, Reese Sagabill. Second place, Cole Rames. Third place, Connor Sides. Fourth place, Strand Spinrath. And fifth place, Silver Dollar. For those breed champions and reserve breed champions, we're going to roll straight into the champion drive after he selects the champion and reserve crosses. So just to give you an idea, any breed and reserve breed champions, we're going to roll straight to the champion drive. First call for the last class of the day, Class 4 crosses, first call.
I think, again, I guess maybe the theme in these crosses so far, logical class winner, young lady in the teal again. Just a burly, dense, stout one. That thing's stout, scald, big back. His upper hip and pin's incredibly impressive. Big hind-legged kind of animal in relation. Just overwhelms and overmasses the contemporaries. He's got a shot more look through the front third of his skeleton. He's got a shot more length of hip, and then he's got more bone and mass. Nice one to start. Not going to tell you he's perfect. I'd like to maybe just clean him up through just his head and his throat and his cheek. You got to watch him in terms of his front foot set, kind of getting right where you got to draw your line in the sand there in terms of pastern strength. But still, I thought in this particular class needed to go ahead and win. 2 and 3 are very similar kind of hogs, and ultimately one of them just has more everywhere. Young man's belted one's going to go second. If you want to just talk wide and stout and square and heavy muscled, man, that barrow's got it in droves. He's big in his upper hip and his pin in the same sense. In relation to our class winner, he's shorter and more jammed up just from his skull to his shoulder blade in terms of length of neck, a little shorter in terms of his hip, but man, that thing is maxed out and ditched up high, impressive in some regards. Very similar comments for the young lady's calico barrow there. That's a square, heavy, muscled one. I didn't read him. It's just expressive or it's expansive on his upper side is what that 1 and 2 was. He's another one. We need to maybe relax a little in his shoulder, lengthen a little in terms of his hip, but heavy muscled, well presented. That's still a nice pair of hogs there in 2 and 3. We just redrove the top 3 here because I thought 4 and 5 kind of logically went. We kind of talked on a few we sent back in this class. We had some very, very dense, heavy muscle ones that just couldn't go good enough. I thought the young man's in 4 kind of logically slid there. I guess at the end of the day, that's just a good kind of practical feeding barrel. He's got some length of side. He's comfortable in his skeleton, has some muscle, has some body, has some look. Why does he go 4? He just doesn't have enough of it anywhere in relation to those ones ahead of him. Not quite as dense in his bone work, not quite as expressive up high, but just a good, solid kind of feeding hog. I thought the young man's calico, maybe similarly to a few of those other ones, heavy muscled, square, shapely, stout mugged one. We've got to just make her bigger and type and kind in terms of just height of shoulder and elevation. Another one maybe gets a little rounder out of her hip, but I thought a nice class, another nice class winner. Congratulate those kids as they head out.
Final call, Class 4 crosses. Final call, Class 4 crosses. Placings for Class 3 crosses. First place went to Taylin Toch. Second place, Andon Usner. Third place, JC Tribes. Fourth place, Aiden Stout. And fifth place, Mr. Milan Berger. Also, if anyone finds a pink phone with a pink iPhone case, if you could bring it up to us. Someone is missing their pink phone. if we could get the first and second place crosses from the first 3 classes of the day to come to the pen. First and second places of the crosses, please.
I think another good class of them here on the top end. And again, I think different parts and pieces, but kind of every single class across us, I guess, is it just felt this way in my mind. I think there's another one that just has to win the class. It's a young lady in black here driving towards me, and I think that's a good kind of showgirl. It looks like an intriguing type of female, however you want to talk her. Mean and rugged in terms of her mug, but still ladylike enough in terms of her look. Her elevation's awesome, spread and squareness out of the back of her blade. Center body cavity just reached true and almost just natural and effortless in that one, and still I think one that maintains squareness off either end of her skeleton. Maybe not just the freakiest one we've seen, and a spot or two where you want to talk bone, but everything fits, blends, balances. I think that's a very nice one to go ahead and lead this particular class. I think again, like the other classes we've talked, you get that one out of there, you can have a little more discussion, but I still think logically our young man on the far side, the blonde-haired young man's driving for someone there. There's one that I think logically has to go second. To me, just looks like a good kind of feeding heavyweight type of barrel. He's loose and pliable and just so flexible in terms of his skeleton. Reads with shape, very good in terms of the center portion of his body. I thought when you step off to the side of that one, I didn't read him, is naturally elevated, just as naturally robust in terms of spread or mass, not as just quite mean in his mug as what that class winner was, and still a good barrel to sit into 2. That young lady on the far side needed to be 3. Kind of a sharp-headed type of show barrel that's square and shapely up high. Probably has a nickel more spread than that one in second does in that same sense. I don't know if I read that one just as comfortable and true in terms of his shoulder blade angle or movement. He's definitely not as big in terms of his foot, his ankle, or his arm. But again, another one. Well-patterned, big back, shapely, well-shown kind of show barrel. It's a nice one to sit in 3. I think the 1 and 4 is intriguing. He's not ready to win the show today, but man, I think the young man's got an interesting one if the right things kind of happen. That's a tall-shouldered show barrel. It's got a neat look. He's got chest. He's got a bigger hind leg when you tuck in behind him than maybe you think originally does. Incredibly good in his build and his look, his skeleton. There's not enough of him today to move up, but man, that thing's built so well. I'd probably swing for the fence and see how much you can get into that one. That young ladies, I thought I got close between a few of them to grab that 5 spot. I ultimately thought that one's just kind of look and fresh shape on his upper skeleton allowed him to do that. If you want to move this barrel up, we've got to loosen him and let him hinge better out of his hip and his hind leg. Good class, another good class winner. Congratulate those kids as they head out.
I'll do results. Sorry. Okay. Results from Class 4 crosses. First place went to Reese Saugabill. Second place, Creighton Rains. Third place, Carson Beachy. Fourth place, Mark Wade Schmatinsky. And fifth place, Channing Spinrath. After the selection of the champion and reserve champion crossbred, we will begin our grand drive for the pigs. So if you had a champion or reserve champion hog today, think about coming up here pretty quick. If we could get the champion and reserve champion pigs up to the holding ring, please. Champion and reserve champion pigs.
Well, you get out here to pick your grand and reserve here in your darks, and quite honestly, it maybe takes just an extra second in relation to most of those other breeds or divisions, because kind of I referenced it maybe in every class. I thought these all four absolutely had to win their classes, and there wasn't a whole lot of discussion. So truth be told, I didn't maybe study them in their individual classes as much as what we did in some of those other breeds. But I think you look in the ring, there's four very, very high quality animals out here. I think there's obviously just to talk kind of briefly, or I guess what runs through my head. I think one of them's obviously a gilt, and I don't know if she's going to San Antonio or what it is, because you're obviously not going to have to show against the other three if you're showing her in a gilt show. But I think that one to me just looks like a generating female that if she's for sale eventually could bring a bunch. She looks like an awesome show gilt. And then, I honestly think you've got a pair of them out here that are just so stout and rugged and freaky in terms of their bone. Maybe just aren't perfect. You could almost contend they might have been more valuable left intact, if you will, but just so many freak pieces. Then you think you've got another one that I think's a show barrel deluxe in terms of just elevation, look. He naturally ties the upper side of his neck into his shoulder blade smoother than really all three of them. He's got hair dripping off of him. He's stout in his bone work, but he's cleaner in his joints. And honestly, for me, looks like he's on his way up. I'd love to see maybe what he can do in the future. That young lady in the black sparrow is your champion. Congratulations to her. Drop that young man's in. Again, we talked in that class. If you just want to talk squareness and freshness of back, muscular shape over his loin edge, that thing's maybe as ditched out and as square up high as anything we've seen today. We kind of commented in class, and I think it still rings true. I just don't think he's elite enough from his shoulder blade forward to maybe put him into contention. I think it boils down to maybe another pair of them, and again, I think it gets really, really close because honestly, truthfully, the breeder in me is like, man, I want to take one of them home to breed sows or breed in my sow herd. I think there's another one that it's just so unique in some spots. I kind of wish you could buy a dose or two of semen on them. So I think it's really, really close, and that's just what's in my head. He's the ones that's just so unique, I guess, in my mind. I'm not going to leave him out. A young lady in the teal right here in front of me is going to have your reserve. Congratulations to her.
Our champion cross went to Reese Sagabel, and our reserve champion cross went to Taylin Toch.
Vogel Tractors, high-quality tractors, construction machines, and utility vehicles, new and used equipment and attachments from Rhino, Armstrong Ag, Industrious America, and more. Vogel Tractors specializes in 20 to 150 horsepower tractors, as well as skid steers, excavators, and more. All machines field-tested, shop-inspected, and serviced to exceed expectations. Online at FbgLive.com or give us a call 830-644-1400.
Segner's Jewelers in Bee Cave and Fredericksburg have all you desire for Valentine's Day. Beautiful diamonds, colorful gemstones, and metals to match your taste and complete your unique look. Your perfect engagement ring awaits you at Segner's. Let them custom design a special piece or repair your favorite one. Located in the HEB Center on 71 in Bee Cave and 236 West Main in Fredericksburg. Or at SegnersJewelers.com. Welcome to Segner's. Define your love. Define yourself.
Our reserve champion Hamp was exhibited by Reese Saugabill. Our reserve champion York was exhibited by Reese Saugabill. Our reserve champion White OPB was exhibited by Scout Eckhart. Our reserve champion Dark OPB was exhibited by Bennett Canese. Our reserve champion Berkshire was exhibited by Chapel Herber. And our reserve champion Crossbred was exhibited by Taylin Toch. Let's give these reserve champions another round of applause. And now for our champions. Our champion Duroc was shown by Chapel Herber. Our champion Hamp, Cole Rains. Our champion York, Bennett Canese. Our champion White OPB, Mackenzie Wyrick. Our champion Dark OPB, Audie Usner. Our champion Berkshire, Murphy Blunt. And our champion Crossbred, Reese Saugabill. Let's give these champions another round of applause before our judge makes his selection.
Well, you guys can park them just for a second. I promise I'm not real big on grand drive speeches at a county level. Not to diminish it, but you guys have so many shows you're going to go to, and you got I'm sure other things to do. So you can park them real quick, but we're not going to be real long. Thank you guys, I guess, for the opportunity to come back down here. It's certainly been enjoyable, and it's an honor to come judge them. And I thought all day the kids and parents and just everybody, when you come to Texas, it's always the same way. It's incredibly well ran. Kids are respectful, crowds respectful, and today was certainly no different. But I'd be remiss if before we get off the microphone here, you guys have a awesome county or crew or committee, or I'm not really sure what you guys are labeled as, but here in Gillespie County that run these things and line them up, and ladies at the table and guys over here that do a fantastic job, and this thing's ran incredibly smooth. If you guys would, give all those people a nice big round of applause. Again, I guess kids, I always say it, whether you're in the ring now or you're in the back, or I'm a great judge in your eyes, or I might be the dumbest guy you've ever seen hold a microphone, depending on how you place, that's fine. I promise you there's another pig show with another judge that'll place them a different way. But all of you kids today, just make sure you tell whoever it is that helps you, thank you, because, this thing isn't easy to do. It's not cheap to do. You have a support system around you that allows you to do it. So thank those people. You guys in the crowds, breeders, parents, brothers, sisters, whoever it may be, thank you guys for allowing your kids to grow up in the livestock industry. And it may sound cliche, but we've got a kid at home now, and I'm excited to raise her in the same industry. And I don't think there's any better way to raise kids than besides the livestock industry. So thank all of you guys for allowing these kids to have that opportunity. They'll be better people because of it. So I guess I'll end you with before we get you a grand and reserve. Obviously did the show last year, and I thought quality was good. My compliments to all you guys, families, breeders, whoever it may be, fitters. I thought the quality today was leaps and bounds better, and that's not to diminish what was here last year, and maybe it's just time of year, the way the set of pigs came together, but I thought this set of pigs today was incredibly good. I think it was Randall. I did Randall County last year, and 6 or 7 of those things hit it big, I guess, when it mattered the most. And the depth of quality breed by breed through today kind of reminded me of that show. So I sincerely hope you get these things finished maybe the way that set did, because I thought high-end quality in every single breed. So my sincerest compliments to you one last time, not just for these kids in the ring. Put your hands together for every kid that's shown all day. You guys can fire them up. Again, thank you very much for the opportunity. We might talk maybe a little more in depth to get your reserve. Just got to get a grand reserve. I thought this set of pigs was awesome. There's 7 breed champions out here and there's some reserves. There's some pigs third or second class that wouldn't be surprised if have better days ahead of them. A very, very good set of them. I think one of them just looks like an elite show barrel. Wild looking, hair dripping off of him, fresh, honestly immature in the right ways. Looks like he's on the way up. Young lady in black that's got your champion cross is the champion. Yes, last time you'll hear me talk. Again, my sincerest compliments. This show's been awesome, and the decision for reserve, I think, is incredibly, incredibly difficult. Just to be totally honest, there's a set of breed champion gilts out here that are very, very good, and that's not just judge speak. These things look incredibly expensive if you ran them through a sale ring, or some of them might run through a sale ring, I guess, here later on. But they look expensive. They're elite in areas. Honestly, all of them. They're so good in so many spots. I don't know if maybe any of them are just absolutely perfect, but gosh, they look expensive. They're neat looking, they're airy, they're shapely up high, they're still immature, they've got some outlier pieces. I still think, the white OPB on the far side, maybe not 12 o'clock today, but that thing, elevation, look, build, skeleton, so good. It looks like, when his time comes, it comes. And again, I mean, truthfully, for me, it comes down between maybe the pair of the Hamp and the Reserve Cross out here. And I think it's close because, honestly, I think that Reserve Cross is just so out there in terms of just foot and toe size, arm size. His rear bone column so big. He utilizes his hind leg incredibly, incredibly well. To be nitpicky, I'd like to strengthen his front pastern ever so slightly. I'd like to clean him right through his throat latch and just his under jawline. Champion Hamp on the opposite end. That thing's kind of wild looking through the front third of his skeleton. Naturally probably elevates at the point of his shoulder a little better. In the same sense, is really, really good in terms of his shape. I don't know if I read that one. It's just expansive in terms of his rib cage. He's certainly not as freaky in terms of his bone work. So that's the way I see him. And again, I think it's very, very close. For me today, one of them's just so unique. I'm not going to leave him out. We're going to keep that pair of crosses together. She'll be reserved.
Our grand champion of the 2025 show goes to Reese Saugabill, and our reserve grand champion, Taylin Toch. And now we're going to announce our outstanding showmen. I will begin with the beginners, and then I'll go to juniors and seniors. If your name is called, please come get your award from us for outstanding showman. Yes. Our first place beginner goes to Hagen Paisy. Our second place goes to Scout Eckhart. And our third place goes to Creed Cromer. Our junior showman's first place goes to Cole Rains. Second place, Willow Herber. And third place, Leighton Haley. For our senior showman's, our first place goes to Reese Saugabill. Second place, Casey Hawkins. And third place, Emma Schleder. Thank you, everyone, for coming out to our pig show today. Don't forget, tomorrow's the sale. Anyone who got showmanship, we'd also like to get your picture as a group at the backdrop. So please, the 9 I just announced, if you'd go to the backdrop for a picture, please.